Today I'm going to show you how you can make this really cool stop block system for your crosscut sled. Alright, but why would you want something like this for your sled? It's all about precision cutting. Before I had this, I was hopelessly moving my blade up to a line I cut beforehand, which, yes, I had to measure. Transferring pencil lead, graphite, to a piece of wood is fine and dandy, but when it's time to cut, you have the extra step of making sure you space the tooth of the blade just right to get that perfect cut. Now it's as simple as finding my measurement, twisting a knob, pushing the board up to the stop block, and finally cutting. And hey, you can build this, and cheaply. We're not going to bother buying an expensive T-track or the hardware needed to set this up. Watch and I'll show you how I made mine. Now I'm going to start this off by showing you my prototype. My design, due to the measuring tape in the inside, calls for a fence on your table saw sled to be at least 1.5 inches thick, or the thickness of a 2x4. If your fence isn't that wide, that's okay. We'll take the width of your fence and subtract it from the 1.5 inches. Next, we'll cut the amount off some scrap wood and we'll simply glue it onto the back of your sled. Next, we'll measure and crosscut a 2x6 to be the length of your sled. If your edge is rounded, we'll cut that part off both sides so that we have nice square corners. Now, we'll focus on making the track by moving our blade to a 45-degree angle, and we'll retract the blade so that the highest tooth is 1/4 inch above the table. We'll move our fence so that the highest tooth is about 1 inch and 3/32 away. Are you ready for this? Because it just gets simpler. We'll simply run our 2x6 along the edge and turn it to cut the other side. Now, we'll repeat the same process, moving our fence closer to the blade each time until we get this funny looking point in the middle. Alright, now before we straighten the blade, we'll move the fence to the opposite side of the blade, and from here, we'll flip the board and make the stop block half. You shouldn't have to raise or lower the blade, but we'll want to, again, measure about 1 3/32 from our fence. Feel free to make it a slight bit less than that to get a looser fit. Like before, we'll run our board down through the fence and flip it, doing the parallel side. Before, we moved our fence in as we nibbled away at the board. This time, after each cut, we'll move our fence a bit farther from the blade. And this little beauty is what you'll get when you're done. Now, we'll straighten our blade, but we won't raise or lower it. We'll put the 2x6 side with our valley in it so it's facing down on the table saw. Remember that funny little point in the middle? Now it's time to say goodbye. The process, well, it's the same. Move the fence, make our cut, flip the board, you know how it goes. When it's done, this is what it'll look like. I told you it was easy. We'll simply cut it off at about 1/2 inch and the other side at about 1 1/4 inches. It's a perfect fit. Next, we'll cut 2 sections off of our stop block side at 7/8 inches each. This next step gets a little bit more tricky, but it eliminates the need for a drill press or a drill, and it makes it so much more accurate. I used a little carpet tape to tape both pieces together and then cut directly down the center. Now, I want this to be wide enough to accept a 1/4 inch T-nut, and the barrel on those are about 5/16 of an inch. So we'll want to raise the blade by 5/16 of an inch, and after we cut down the center, we'll want to make a cut on either side of that to equal about 5/16 of an inch. Next, we'll attach them with horsehoof paste. Now, I know it's not ideal to glue on the end grain, but I think we'll be alright this time. Now that we've gotten both the track and slide done, we'll go on to make the arm. We'll use the center part of the 2x6 we cut earlier to make the arm. We'll make sure it's the width of the slide we just glued, and line it up, adding a pencil mark. I added a little glue and used a very thin spacer on the bottom, which will prevent the arm from getting wedged against the fence in the base. It's important to make sure to line up the edge of the arm and the slide plate so that they're perfect. We'll also want to make sure that the arm is at a nice 90-degree angle from the base. Okay, you're going to want to ignore the bolts in the shot and throughout the rest of the video. I originally thought adding them would have some benefit, but I regret that now. We will want to add a 1/4 inch T-nut in the valley we carved out on the slide and smother it with nature's blessed glue. Since we're using pine, I think in this case we're okay hammering it in. While the epoxy is still curing, we'll add a little of it to the top of a 1/4 inch carriage bolt that's about 2 inches long and attach a wing nut. Give the epoxy some time to do its magic. We'll use a hot glue gun and add a small drop to the bottom of our carriage bolt. This will keep our bolt from scratching up the measuring tape. Next, we'll attach the measuring tape. The first thing we'll do is push our arm against the carbide teeth of our blade. We don't want it pressed against it so that the blade deflects, we just want it to saddle up next to it. Earlier, if you followed my instructions, we cut a channel that's deep enough to push the adhesive measuring tape in, so there should be plenty of room. When we line it up to the edge of the slide and the arm, we'll put our bolt in and snug it down a little. On the opposite side of the measuring tape, we'll peel part of the tape backing off and push it down. Now, the tape I bought cost about $12 at my local store. That's too much for this. I did find a cheaper alternative that I've listed in my description if you're interested in buying it online. Then we'll release the bolt and move the arm away, fully removing the tape backing. And believe it or not, you're done. That's it. Now, all you have to do is move the arm to the right measurement, lock the arm down, and cut your wood. Like all of my projects, I like to find ways to improve my designs. This being as simple as it was, there really wasn't much I found to advance the design, but I had a few ideas I'll share here. First and foremost, I moved from softwood pine to a hardwood. Here I'm using Brazilian cherry or jatoba for my channel, which is a much harder wood. I feel like this is a good advancement up from pine as it should be less susceptible to moisture and movement. The slider I went with was hard maple, again another very hard wood that should give me very little movement. My next advancement was adding an aluminum U-track. Because 1/2 of my sled will change due to different kerf thicknesses due to my circular saw blades, I wanted to have the ability to slide the right track to make up those differences. If you either build your track and only use the left side or always use the same blade thickness, you really shouldn't have to worry about blade kerfs. If you'd like to see the full build of the advanced stop block system I made, it'll be on my second channel. The link to the video will be in the description. There will be an Instructable full of free plans with much greater depth on what I've done here. It's not quite finished, but should be in the next few days. I'll send out a notification when I finish it, so make sure you subscribe and hit the bell if those plans interest you, because that's the only way I'll be able to let you know when they're finished. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, ring the bell, and I thank you so much for being a part of my shop. Please leave a comment below, come find me on Instagram at MakeThingsWithRob, and remember to keep making things.